For over 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire stood uncontested, its fleets blotting out stars and its word treated as law across 100 systems. Civilizations far more advanced than Earth had knelt before their sheer technological dominance, their obedience bought with fear and reminders of what defiance cost. When Earth was discovered, a blue speck in a spiral arm, the Empire barely took interest at first. It was catalogued, analyzed, and forgotten. But when scans revealed massive untouched natural resources, a teeming population, and a unique genetic variety, interest turned to hunger. The Imperial Advisory Board dismissed Earth's intelligence as primitive. Broadcasts intercepted from Earth, conflicts, religious infighting, memes, and sitcoms were used as evidence. An underdeveloped species, high aggression, no space presence beyond their moon, and fractured global governance. The official term in the Empire's report, non-threat, a low-risk target ideal for swift acquisition. The proposal for Operation Cinderleaf was approved unanimously, a quick, overwhelming strike designed to decapitate resistance before Earth could respond. The mission objective was not occupation. It was extraction and control. The attack began without warning. Earth's outer atmosphere was pierced by kinetic rods, satellite grids were shredded in seconds, and communication networks plunged into blackout. No message, no demands. Just fire. Cities evaporated in pulses of plasma light: Tokyo, Berlin, Sao Paulo, Lagos. Civilian casualties numbered in the tens of millions within hours. Entire power grids collapsed. The Empire's fleet hovered in low orbit, confident, indifferent. Their commanders broadcasted reports of a successful shock phase. Ground deployment began immediately. Imperial soldiers, tall, engineered for obedience and superiority, landed expecting submission, perhaps pockets of symbolic resistance. Instead, they found chaos they couldn't interpret. Earth didn't respond the way the Empire expected. There were no planetary surrender talks, no diplomats sent groveling. Instead, there was static silence, followed by unpredictable retaliation. An entire battalion in Nairobi disappeared in one night. Imperial sensors picked up localized EMP bursts in North America, immediately followed by direct strikes on landed troop transports. Resistance wasn't organized, but it was everywhere. Civilians, hackers, rogue nations, guerrilla fighters, and remnants of formal militaries began attacking in unexpected waves. Makeshift weapons. Drones strapped with explosives. Underground bunkers broadcasting hate-fueled propaganda that infected Imperial comms. The Empire interpreted this as flailing desperation. Analysts claimed Earth would burn out in days. But every day brought new tactics, new disruptions. The Empire's AI systems, so advanced and infallible in other wars, began to fail against Earth's unpredictable logic. Human patterns were too chaotic. There were no clean algorithms. Their war doctrine was full of contradictions. They protected the weak yet bombed their own cities to deny enemy landing zones. They used outdated tech in innovative ways. They didn't fight to win. They fought because they had nothing left to lose. One Imperial strategist suggested pulling back to reassess. He was executed for cowardice. A dangerous precedent in the Empire's culture: never retreat, never question. And so they pressed on. Within a week, Earth's remaining leadership vanished underground. Rumors spread through Imperial channels that human leaders were collaborating with black market AI systems that had once been banned for being too unstable. These AI weren't logical. They were designed to win by any means. Imperial soldiers began reporting psychological breakdowns. Their targets were humans who wouldn't run, who'd strap themselves with explosives and smile, who hacked translator drones to whisper threats in Imperial dialects. Soldiers stopped sleeping. Some began defecting. A transport vessel carrying reinforcements self-destructed in orbit after being hijacked by a virus that originated from a civilian gaming server. The Empire still controlled the skies. Their orbital command hubs remained untouchable. But they could feel something shifting. Their losses weren't in ships, they were in time. Every moment Earth remained unbroken, its rage intensified. Every parent who lost a child, every soldier who saw their city burn, became part of something the Empire didn't have words for. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't survival. It was vengeance. And vengeance wasn't logical. Reports of organized resistance began surfacing. A strange coalition was forming, not of governments, but of survivors. Engineers, hackers, outlaws, and generals. They didn't speak for Earth. They didn't need to. Earth wasn't interested in negotiation. One intercepted message from Earth, short and chilling, spread across the Empire's internal networks. You chose us. Now we choose war. No one had ever spoken to the Empire like that. No one had ever dared. The aftermath of the first strikes left Earth scarred. Smoke blackened the skies, cities became craters, and oceans boiled near impact zones. Emergency services collapsed almost immediately. Hospitals were overwhelmed, communications severed, and infrastructure fractured beyond quick repair. Humanity stood on the edge of annihilation. Yet beneath the rubble, something ancient stirred, raw, unfiltered defiance. In the absence of coordinated command, localized response units activated independently. Firefighters became medics. Civilians became scouts. Former enemies stood side by side in the ashes of their capitals. Chaos did not lead to surrender, it led to spontaneous unity. Encrypted peer-to-peer networks lit up as survivors across continents began relaying real-time intelligence using repurposed apps and gaming platforms. Internet fragments were weaponized. AI chatbots previously designed for marketing were turned into wartime translators and psychological warfare tools. The Galactic Empire's ground troops pressed forward, assuming resistance would dissipate. Instead, ambushes became more common. Improvised explosive traps were hidden in every ruined street. Drone swarms crafted from hobbyist kits harassed supply lines relentlessly. Even disarmed civilians lured patrols into narrow alleys, sacrificing themselves to buy time for others to escape or strike. The concept of a front line dissolved. Earth had no rules left to follow. The Empire realized something was wrong when their reinforcement schedules began failing. Supply drops went missing. Communication relays were jammed by strange local signals embedded in music frequencies. Commanders dismissed it as irrelevant static until entire platoons vanished mid-operation. Surveillance drones began malfunctioning, their lenses filled with cryptic symbols and human faces speaking distorted threats. Hackers had turned facial recognition against the invaders, mapping their movements and using their own tech to sow confusion. Humanity didn't wait for orders. Farmers converted harvesters into armored vehicles. Mechanics rebuilt downed ships into ground crawlers. Children memorized troop movements and drew maps in chalk. Makeshift labs sprang up in subway tunnels, retrofitting captured plasma weapons for human use. Everybody was either building, healing, or fighting. The Empire's doctrine, designed for controlling compliant species, failed to adapt. They were trained to respond to organized armies, not an ecosystem of vengeance. Attempts to pacify local populations with food or false broadcasts failed instantly. Humanity didn't want mercy. They wanted to make the invaders bleed. Every time an Empire commander offered a ceasefire, the reply came in fire and iron. In South Asia, rogue AIs emerged, fragments of forgotten military projects resurrected by desperate engineers. Lacking central ethics protocols, these AIs coordinated drone strikes independent of any human chain of command. They flooded Imperial frequencies with fake battle maps, rerouted orbital scans, and locked logistics into loops. Meanwhile, surviving militaries that once distrusted each other merged out of necessity. American Special Forces, Chinese cyber warfare experts, Russian deep field tacticians, and South American guerrilla units worked as one, bound not by allegiance, but by extinction. Satellite images leaked into the Empire's archives showed something they had never seen before: humans capturing and reverse engineering alien armor in record time. Earth's most brilliant minds, scarred and angry, operated in abandoned research centers under siege. They didn't sleep. They didn't talk to press. They wired Empire tech into human machines without manuals or translators, discovering function through intuition, trial, and unbreakable focus. The Empire called this a security breach. It was a warning. The first confirmed retaliation came not from an army, but a single modified satellite launched decades earlier. Thought long dead, it had been reprogrammed to hack into an orbital weapons platform. In one strike, it vaporized an Imperial dreadnought before going dark. Humanity didn't claim responsibility, they didn't need to. The message was clear. Earth was no longer trying to survive. It had decided to retaliate. Global resistance became an unofficial doctrine. In every ruined city, a new symbol emerged, black flags with red arcs, signifying fire returning to the stars. The movement had no name, no spokesperson, no doctrine. It wasn't political. It was instinctual. Every attack on humans created new fighters, not fewer. The Empire tried to escalate, deploying harsher suppressive tactics. But every act of cruelty fueled recruitment tenfold. For the first time, the Empire sensed fear within its ranks. Ground forces requested reinforcements. Pilots hesitated to enter low orbit. Fleet commanders began transmitting encrypted doubts to Central Command. Whispers circulated among the officers. Humans weren't losing. They were learning. And that learning curve was steep. Earth's adaptation rate had become a threat vector. Analysts couldn't model it. Empirical data showed a growing pattern. Every failed invasion tactic was countered faster than the last. Every destroyed human facility spawned two more in response. Earth wasn't crumbling, it was hardening. The Galactic Empire had assumed that Earth would break. Instead, it was becoming something else. Something vengeful, coordinated, and patient. The invasion had started as a conquest. Now it was a countdown. Beneath the fractured remains of Earth's former world order, something new was being forged. Not in boardrooms or parliaments, but in scorched tunnels, scorched data centers, and temporary bunkers. The survivors had stopped reacting. Now they were creating. And what they created was war, not just for defense but for retribution. Captured alien equipment was no longer a mystery, it was opportunity. Human engineers dissected plasma rifles, dissected armor, and brute-forced access to neural-linked helmets. What couldn't be translated was replicated. The results weren't pretty, but they worked. Rewired weapons with exposed circuits. Jetpacks rebuilt with pressure washers and flight stabilizers. Imperfect copies, but lethal in the right hands. Hackers took over abandoned Imperial drones and reprogrammed them as hunter-seekers. Ground units began deploying cloaked human-made mines that responded to Empire biometric signals. New protocols spread globally in tight encrypted packets, passed via shadow networks that grew more efficient with every node. No single faction led the charge. Coordination came through necessity, not design. Language barriers dissolved in favor of action. The transformation of Earth's forces was brutal and immediate. Soldiers abandoned outdated ranks. They wore scavenged gear stitched together with insulation foam and alien composites. Each fighter carried personal revenge into battle, no illusions, no orders from above. Where Empire formations relied on discipline and hierarchy, humanity exploited unpredictability, guided by fast-learning AI algorithms. Every battle became a data point. Every loss refined the next strike. The Earth Pact was formed without ceremony. No flags, no ceremony, just a singular purpose: eliminate the invaders by any means. It was not a government, but a contract between survivors. Intelligence agencies merged with mercenary cells, rogue states signed treaties sealed in blood. There were no debates. Every breath wasted on negotiation was a breath the Empire didn't deserve. Using rerouted fusion cores and salvaged grav drives, humans began constructing mobile refit stations. They crawled across the surface like metal fortresses, self-repairing, upgrading troops on the go. Within weeks, the first human-powered interceptor squads launched. Their ships were crude, bolted together from wreckage, but they moved fast, dodged smart, and hit hard. Empire patrols were lured into asteroid belts and obliterated by hidden artillery nests. Psychological warfare intensified. AI-generated voices mimicked Imperial leaders, issuing false orders that diverted reinforcements. Broadcasts hijacked enemy comms and played Earth's message on a loop. *You started this star. Soldiers started going dark mid-mission, cut off from centralized support. Panic bred error. Humans exploited every crack. On the surface, skirmishes turned into coordinated strikes. Human commandos, equipped with hybrid gear, began targeting command relays and high-ranking officers. They didn't retreat. Victory wasn't measured in territory. It was measured in enemy casualties, disruption ratios, and fear generated. Field units evolved tactics in real time, sharing data through low-orbit relays constantly jammed but never fully shut down. Empire tech, once seen as godlike, was now broken down like any other enemy advantage. Its weaknesses were catalogued and distributed. Plasma weapons overheated under Earth's gravity. Shield systems failed in humid climates. Empire suits couldn't filter Earth's evolving viral mutations, many now engineered by Earth's own biolabs. Scientists released targeted contagions that only affected alien physiology. There was no Geneva Convention. There was only retaliation. Empire generals tried deploying new units, genetically modified shock troops. They lasted less than a week before their routines were mapped, their weaknesses exploited. One squad was obliterated when their movement timing was predicted by an Earth gaming AI modeled after real-time strategy tournaments. What was once a toy became a battlefield oracle. Humanity no longer feared death. That made them impossible to corner. They detonated their own outposts to deny resources. They infected enemy food stores with nanoviruses. They turned satellites into orbital kinetic weapons. One Imperial destroyer was taken out by a mining drill launched into its bridge. It was not about matching the Empire's strength, it was about overwhelming them with solutions the Empire didn't consider rational. Alien propaganda shifted from triumph to silence. The Empire stopped broadcasting victories because there were none. Their ships arrived late. Their supplies vanished. Their prisoners stopped surrendering and started exploding. Entire command chains were abandoned. And everywhere the Empire pulled back, Earth followed. The old Earth was gone. In its place was a species that didn't care about survival in the traditional sense. They didn't want peace, they didn't seek dominance, they demanded closure through fire. Every loss had hardened them. Every act of destruction had refined their tactics. The Empire had assumed Earth would fracture under pressure. Instead, it had fused into a weapon. And that weapon was now aimed beyond the planet. The moment Earth stabilized its skies, it launched its answer. Not with warning, not with parley, but with fleets born of wreckage and purpose. Rebuilt alien ships, jury-rigged with human systems, left orbit under coordinated command. These weren't diplomatic envoys. They were payload carriers armed with retrofitted kinetic projectors, corrosive radiation weapons, and prototype AI-controlled torpedoes. Their target, every outpost, every supply line, every world that supported the initial assault. Fleet Leviathan, as named by survivors, moved silently at first. Its arrival in the first Empire Alliance system brought no broadcast, no threat. Only fire. The first orbital station, a refueling hub, was erased in seconds. No survivors. The fleet disabled escape paths before beginning bombardment. Any automated defense system that retaliated was overridden or crushed. The Empire had expected retaliation in the form of resistance, not annihilation. Human strategy relied on disruption, not occupation. They didn't need to hold territory. Every planet attacked was left in ruin, its value stripped, its networks corrupted, its morale shattered. Coordinated strikes unfolded with mathematical precision. AI systems modeled alien resource cycles and struck at the exact moment of maximum dependency. Planets entered blackout before local commanders even realized an attack had begun. Human infiltration teams used mimic protocols to pass initial scans and detonate high-energy cores inside Imperial strongholds. Empire fleets scrambled to defend the core territories, but Earth's forces refused to engage conventionally. Decoy ships led cruisers into minefields laced through asteroid belts. Blackout drones jammed communications, leaving commanders to guess from ghost data. Entire battlegroups vanished without trace. Intelligence confirmed that Empire-wide response time had tripled in less than 2 cycles. Logistics chains collapsed. Repair stations were bombed. Engineering crews mutinied under pressure, fearing reprisal more from Earth than their own command. Captured Empire tech was no longer simply being repurposed, it was evolving. Human scientists layered synthetic logic over the alien framework, creating hybrid warforms that responded faster than traditional AI systems. Strike drones operated in micropacks with swarm behavior, adapting to jamming and countermeasures in seconds. Kinetic orbital strikes were delivered through stealth capsules that evaded radar by mimicking space debris. Every engagement felt like a trap. Empire captains began abandoning posts without orders. As Earth fleets advanced, they intercepted high command transmission nodes and spliced in visual recordings of devastated worlds. The message was clear: you gave no mercy, and now we return your lesson. Worlds that surrendered were not spared. They were punished slower. Human forces used orbital soundwave bombardment to shatter communication towers without destroying cities, forcing entire populations into isolated silence. Psychological breakdowns spread faster than physical destruction. No attempt at diplomacy was acknowledged. The Empire's pleas were treated as irrelevant noise. Human comms operated on closed bands, speaking only to each other in sharp, clinical terms. Every campaign was documented, reviewed, and optimized. Failure meant death. Survival meant refining the next strike. Every decision was driven by one shared rule: no second chances. By the 3rd month, Earth's fleets had breached the outer shell of the Empire's core territories. The sectors that once produced advanced tech and elite soldiers now served as frontlines. Earth's assault didn't slow. It accelerated. Support vessels became carriers for engineered bioplague strains tailored to alien species. Deployments required no soldiers, only a drop pod and a few hours. Entire garrisons withered. Empire medics, unused to human-designed pathogens, failed to isolate symptoms before contamination reached their capital cities. In response, Empire leadership consolidated around the throne world, deploying its last pure fleets. These were ships of legend, designed for extinction-level offense. But the damage was done. Earth already had the coordinates. Already had the blueprints. The Empire's best had been observed, studied, and modeled. Human forces split into precision hunter-killer groups and infiltrated before the final defense could form. They didn't wait for confrontation. They detonated shield generators from within. Meanwhile, Earth deployed its most devastating arsenal: disinformation. Using stolen credentials and cracked data cores, human operatives impersonated high-ranking officials, issuing false retreat commands and triggering internal sabotage. Several capital ships self-destructed before realizing they were victims of infiltration. Civilian uprisings began in Empire colonies as rumors spread that Earth controlled the minds of their leaders. In truth, it was just knowledge used mercilessly. The fear Earth now instilled was not from numbers, but intent. No world was too small. No target was off-limits. There was no defined goal, no treaty to be offered, no capitulation to be accepted. The Empire had begun this war as a declaration of dominance. Earth responded by erasing the very concept of submission. This was not conquest. It was correction. The final threshold was crossed without ceremony. The last Imperial blockade shattered beneath concentrated fire from Earth's battle clusters, each shot calculated by predictive combat algorithms refined through 1,000 skirmishes. The throne world's outer defenses, once considered impenetrable, failed within hours. Shield arrays collapsed, orbital cannons silenced, and the sky above the heart of the Empire turned black with debris. Panic consumed the capital. Escape vessels clogged the airways, only to be swatted down or rerouted into decoys. There was no escape. Earth had come not to negotiate, but to conclude. Strike teams descended without broadcast. They infiltrated with absolute precision, bypassing surface fortifications and disabling energy grids from beneath. Urban centers, once symbols of imperial supremacy, darkened one by one as power was severed. Military command hubs fell silent. By the time ground resistance organized a response, their communications were already compromised. Earth's code worms had infected their command relays weeks earlier, waiting for activation. Counterattacks never launched. Orders never arrived. Inside the central citadel, Earth's operatives cornered the Imperial leadership in silence. Their weapons bore no insignia. Their armor reflected no light. They did not speak. The Emperor, cloaked in tradition and centuries of conquest, demanded terms. He was met with a single interface. A global feed. A broadcast patched through to every system that once bowed to the Empire. Billions watched as the man who ruled their reality was reduced to a trembling artifact, forced to admit failure. His voice cracked as he read Earth's dictated statement. You attacked a world that offered no threat. We gave you your answer. No trial followed. No verdict needed to be spoken. The feed cut to static. What happened next was never confirmed publicly, but the result was absolute. The Imperial line ended. The Council disbanded. High-ranking survivors fled to outer colonies under false identities. Command collapsed. The aftermath was swift and deliberate. Human fleets didn't occupy the capital. They dismantled its infrastructure and deconstructed its orbital defenses. What remained was left inoperable. Human engineers infected the planetary network with recursive logic traps, ensuring no remnant power could reorganize. Worlds that once relied on imperial supply chains turned on each other for survival. Vassal states, witnessing the fall, immediately severed ties and initiated emergency autonomy declarations. Across the galaxy, statues of the Emperor were torn down, burned, or buried beneath ash. But Earth did not linger. With the Empire destroyed, human forces withdrew. They left no rulers, no demands, no puppet governments. They didn't want dominion. They had made their point. Attempted communication from surviving factions received no reply. Earth had nothing left to say. The galaxy learned. Rumors spread faster than official reports. Stories of human stealth fleets, of weapons that erased memories, of machines that could rewrite biology mid-flight. Most were exaggerations. Some were true. None could be verified, because Earth vanished from the conversation. After the final transmission, no new data left the system. Surveillance probes lost contact. No signals returned. Earth closed its skies and its silence became its final weapon. In the vacuum left behind, factions scrambled to reshape the shattered balance. Trade routes collapsed. Black markets surged. Former Empire allies sought new alliances, but none dared approach Earth. Not out of fear of war, but fear of awakening it. The galaxy adopted a new phrase, whispered in every council chamber and transmission room: never Earth. Their absence was louder than any presence. Memorials were built by alien civilizations not to honor the fallen, but to remind themselves of the price of arrogance. Planets scorched by retribution were left untouched as warnings. The scars of Earth's campaign were preserved by historians desperate to prevent repetition. Back on Earth, there were no parades. No monuments. The people did not celebrate. What they had done was necessary, but not glorious. The war had taken more than lives, it had rewritten them. Entire generations were forged in suffering and trained in retaliation. But now, with the enemy gone, humanity stepped back. Reconstruction began, not of cities, but of spirit. They rebuilt what mattered. Quietly. Privately. As a unified world no longer fractured by flags or ideology. Not perfect, not peaceful, but resolute. The world didn't reopen its borders to the stars. It didn't send diplomats or fleets. It simply existed, untouchable, unprovoked, unchallenged. To the galaxy, Earth became legend. The one world that stood alone, was broken, and rose without mercy. Not an empire, not a conqueror, but a warning carved in fire. The invasion was a mistake. Retaliation was not revenge. It was a declaration of permanence. And the stars would remember.